Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Mum and Son Run podcast. Me and my mum spend most of our time talking about running anyway, so we figured we may as well hit the record button in the hope that some of our conversations will be useful and entertaining for you too. We're going to be talking about all things running, from our own experiences to the latest news coming from the running world. In this first episode, we talk about my mum's journey into running, from her first run where she felt like she was going to pass out, to her running over 100 park runs and finishing the Rome Marathon in under 4 hours. It's a pretty cool story if I do say so myself. So if you do enjoy it, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Let's get into it. Let's start off because I don't even think I fully know this about you, Mum, of how you got into running.
No, you probably don't know. I didn't run as a youngster other than running as kids do. The only experience that I can really remember relating to running as a teenager was I did take part in one of the school relays. I was in the school relay team, the 400 meters.
How did that go?
Actually, I think we won, but I don't think it was anything to do with my sprinting ability because I'm many things as a runner, but a sprinter ain't one of them.
That's fair.
So that's the only thing that I kind of really remember as a youngster. You know, I had as you did when I was growing up, I had a life of that revolved around being outdoors. So you know, I think then really my kind of journey into fitness generally started as an older teenager, probably after I started work, and it went from there really. But I still didn't run. You know, I didn't run really until I really started in my early 40s. Before that, I'd been a member of gyms. I'd been to various fitness classes when you were young and where there was a creche available. I'd go and do, say, an aerobics class or a step class, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, I didn't drive when you were very little. So walking a pram everywhere was kind of my level of fitness. And so really, I started to run in my early 40s, and I started because I was bought an iPod. It sounds a little ridiculous, but I was bought an iPod and I thought, okay, I could perhaps go out for a run with this iPod. That might be fun. So
Did
my
it have about
first,
4 songs on it?
probably not even that many to be honest. I
Yeah.
probably had no clue what I was doing with it, but it's one of my vivid memories of running the very first time I went out with this iPod, and it was between Christmas and New Year. And it was a very frosty morning, and I went out, and I can remember I was in all kinds of pain fairly early on into the run, you know, with my breathing. Thought I was going to probably keel over. And a gentleman passed me. It was a beautiful day, beautiful, bright, sunny, cold day. And a gentleman passed me, must have been in his 80s if he was a day. And he shouted, "What a beautiful morning for it." He was absolutely, you know, you could just tell he was loving every minute. And I thought, any minute now, I'm gonna keel
Yeah.
over. And his kind of joy in kind of running and being outside kind of, you know, kind of sparked something in me really. And I think that and the thought of like that he was an older gentleman, and I thought, well, you know, I'm in my 40s. If he can do it, then so can I. And that's really where it started. I don't think it came to anything kind of too much more than that for quite a while really. I went out and started just doing the odd run here and there, and I'd get a bit further, and but that feeling of kind of the first 10 minutes feeling awful probably still hasn't left me now, to be honest, some
So the
20 odd years later.
the idea of running a marathon at that point must have felt a million miles
No, no,
away.
no. No, I was out for a little social run with my iPod. It was part of my, I suppose, quest to keep fit and active. It was no more than that. Probably just wanted to perhaps use it as a way of being able to eat more cake and biscuits, to be honest. And, you know,
Yeah.
that's really where it started. I had no thoughts of running a marathon. I had no thoughts of running any race at all, of any distance, to be perfectly honest.
I'm not sure anyone ever does when they first get into running. I think the initial stages, I remember reading an article, and I think that the top reason was to improve health. And the
Yeah,
second most popular reason to start running was to lose weight. So I think
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
people, they start for a certain reason, but those reasons don't tend to keep you long term. Like health does,
No,
But if you start running because you want to lose weight, you're not going to stay running for long. And you need to find something a little bit deeper in running than just it burns calories. And it's the competitive side, it's seeing the progress in yourself day by day. And if you can find that, then that's
Yeah.
what keeps you running for a very long time. But yeah, kind of tell us a little bit about how you went from being the mum with the iPod on the run where you were blowing out of your arse, sorry to put it so bluntly, to then progressing to being the runner that you are today, who's ran a lot of marathons, ran a lot of half marathons, and I would say is a very experienced runner.
Well, it certainly wasn't by design. I would say it was just one of those things that kind of happened. I suppose I started going to a boot camp with a friend, and we used to go 3 times a week. And part of the boot camp involved some running. So I was doing a little bit of running outside the boot camp, and then the boot camp also incorporated some elements of running. And I suppose I met like-minded people at the boot camp, some of whom are still really good friends today, some kind of, 10 years later. Well, must be longer than that actually. But I met other people through the boot camp who were out there kind of already running various distances in races, etc. Still didn't really think that was going to be me, but that's how it started really. And through the boot camp, I became a better runner, I suppose. Again, not by design, just by really keep rocking up and keep doing it.
Consistency, yeah.
Yeah, and the first thing that I ever did that even resembled a race, but very firmly isn't a race, was Parkrun, and that was somebody that I worked with who knew that I'd been doing a bit of running and suggested that I might like. I'd never heard of Parkrun at the time, and it was a lot less popular than it is today. And they suggested that I went and did a park run, and I did. So there was a park run about a mile from home. So I'd either walk down or drive down. And yeah, and the first time I took part in the park run, my goodness, I thought I was going to keel over and die again. It took me right back to where I was the first time I went out for a run.
Did you
But
feel that
something,
initial change in going from just a casual run through the park to there's a start line, there's a time here, there's other people running alongside me. Did you feel like a connection to the racing side of things straight away, or did it take a little while?
I think I probably did, if I'm honest. I think it was more a subconscious thing, but there was something kind of really, really exciting about kind of being in a group of people. And for all of a sudden, I'm not just running either by myself or with a few friends chatting at boot camp. I'm in this run, where I can see that people are taking it seriously. There's that fun element to park run, but there's lots of kind of competition as well. And it's a hilly park run that I did. So, and it was trail and path, and it was two figure of eights. So there was quite a steep hill. In fact, within 100 yards of the park run, it goes uphill, and it's still to this day one of the most challenging park runs that I've done. So it wasn't an easy one, but yeah, there was just something that ignited something in me that said, I want to come back and do this again. And I did. I think I've now completed over 100 park runs, which is not a lot really in the space of time that I've been running, but probably because a lot of that time, a lot of Saturday mornings, I was actually at boot camp for about 10 years. So, it clashed. But when I wasn't there, I'd go along to parkrun as an alternative.
There'll be people listening to this or watching this, mum, hearing you say 100 park runs isn't a lot really, and
Yeah.
thinking she's crazy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
suppose because yeah.
I think I've ran maybe six.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I suppose I'm thinking that I know people, I kind of, some of the runners that I run with now have done, I run with someone that's done 250.
You
There
see
is
the
somebody that
t-shirts, don't you?
I run with somebody that's done 500,
Yeah, they never take
who
that t-shirt
just
off.
No, probably not. So I suppose when I say I've done 100 and it's not many, over 20 years of running, it doesn't feel like many, but yeah, it's and it's been such fun to do that. I never expected that going along and running a park run would kind of spark something in me that says, right, okay, because all of a sudden I've got a set of results because I didn't run with a watch before that. I didn't run with anything that recorded. I wasn't on Strava. I didn't have Garmin Connect and all of the things that you can look at now. I just went out and ran,
Yeah,
which
buy all of the horse and carriages and
Oh, yeah, hilarious. Yeah, hilarious. Yeah.
for
Yeah,
anyone
no
listening,
super shoes then.
yeah, you were running in
Yeah.
those pumps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, not quite. I
yeah.
was running in trainers, but they certainly wouldn't have been running trainers. They would have just been whatever trainers I'd got. I had no idea. I thought running was going to be a cheap sport, and that was another reason that I thought I'd do it because I thought it's not going to cost much. If only I knew then what I know now.
Well,
Um,
for anyone listening to this, my mum owns about 400 pairs of running shoes, so that's what she's referring
that's
to
an
when she says,
exaggeration. I do not. I
right.
do not.
She should have a sponsorship with Hoka, and hopefully
Yeah, I should. That is true.
by the end of this podcast, hopefully we will have one, Mum. We'll get you one because you've earned it. So, how do you go from the first K park run to then thinking I'm going to run 26.2 miles, or was it a half marathon first? Did you kind
Oh no,
of
it's a gradual journey that I had no intention. I thought I'd seen the Manchester 10K on the TV, and obviously it's a local run to us, and I thought, yeah, you know what? I think I'd like to give that a go. That looks like good fun. And it seemed achievable to go from kind of being able to run 3.1 miles to 6.2 miles. So I signed up for the Manchester K, and I don't think I ran it with anybody else. I think at that time I just signed up myself. Wasn't really I still, even though I was running with people, I wasn't really moving in circles of people who were serious runners in that, they signed up for lots of races. So I went and did the Manchester 10K, and I set myself, by this time, I obviously the competitive side of me must have been there from the get-go because I'd set myself a target of coming in at under an hour, and I came in at something like 59 minutes, and I'm pretty sure it was 50 something seconds. I was literally within a few seconds of the hour. And I just remember that feeling, of putting the medal round my neck. And I don't think I took it off. I think I slept in it. I'll be honest. I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but the buzz that I got from just my own achievements and just seeing everybody out there just thoroughly enjoying kind of the streets of Manchester. And if I remember rightly, it was one of Manchester's very sunny days, which it can have some,
one of
and it
them?
can have some. Yeah, it was one of those. It
They're
was
always
May. It's
memorable.
May. Yeah, it was the end of May, and I just remember that real buzz of I still didn't think that I would be going anywhere near a marathon distance or even a half marathon distance at that stage. I didn't even think I'd do many 10Ks. I didn't have a plan for what my running life would look like. I was just kind of going with the flow and thoroughly enjoying it, really. I don't, I think I can remember running the Trafford 10K. And by this time, one of my boot camp friends was running more, and we were starting to kind of run together and set up kind of run dates, if you like, to go out and you know what, they were chatty, um, kind of no more than we'd go out and run no more than 10K, and I didn't really have any inclination to run any further than that.
Being
And
cake
then
afterwards.
yeah, well, that's always been a thing. That's, yeah, it was a shame really that I learned fairly early on that, it takes a mile to run off a banana. So I knew that,
Yeah,
you know,
once you've learned
it
that,
was, yeah, the kind of the motivation to run to lose weight kind of, goes off pretty quickly, really.
yeah,
There has to be something else. And for me, I suppose it was that I had friends that were running it. Something sparked my interest in kind of trying to get better at doing it. And yeah, so I did a few 10Ks, and then I don't really remember how I ended up signing up for my first half marathon, but I do remember my first half marathon. It was the England half marathon in Warrington, which obviously is where your nan and granddad live. And so they came to watch me, and it used to start in Victoria Park. So for anybody that is local to the area or has even been and done the England half marathon, they'll remember it. It starts kind of in the park and it used to finish round the track. It doesn't anymore, but I don't think it does anyway. But so I probably didn't train properly. I didn't know anything about fueling for training,
Training plans.
about anything really, about training plans. I did more running to get towards, the 13.1 miles. And again, I set myself a target this time, and I thought, well, if I can do 10K in an hour, I'm going to set myself a target of 2 hours for a half marathon. And I kind of like, I think I make a bit of a habit of this, but I came in at 1:59 something or other. It was literally just under the 2 hours. And again, the buzz to kind of set yourself a goal and achieve it. And now when I look back, of course, I think like I didn't set myself up for the success. It just so happened that, I can be quite stubborn, and I
That's what
think
I
I
was
probably,
thinking. I'm not gonna be.
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you. When you were
yeah,
saying I came in just under the
yeah,
goals I've set, I know how stubborn you
yeah,
are, and I know that you'll have been running flat out at the end, regardless
yeah,
of how hard you've trained in the build up to the race. I know what you're like. There's a
yeah,
stubbornness to you that doesn't know when
there
you're beat.
is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know sometimes that kind of bites you on the backside, but and sometimes it doesn't. I can't honestly remember if I was running with a watch by this stage, or I just remember coming in round the track and I could see the digital display, and I thought, and I could actually hear Ian screaming at me from the stands as well, because there was like a little stand where there's spectators, and he was shouting, and for anybody that runs, you'll know that kind of out of nowhere, as the finish line comes into view, all of a sudden your body can kind of find that little bit extra. And I
Adrenaline.
did. And then I remember that when the results came out, I wasn't in the results, I was absolutely devastated, and I don't know why. I don't know why to this day. But anyway, I contacted the organisers of the England Half Marathon, and kicked up a bit of a stink, and
Of course.
not in a bad way, just because I'd got my number on, etc. No, do you know what happened? I think my shoe, the chip that goes on your shoe, I think it had come off, and I partway through the race, and I ran with it in my hand. I'd stopped to pick it up, and I ran with it in my hand, and I don't think it had registered, but they put me into the results, and I
Bet
think
they did.
probably, yeah, I realised that you know that part of running is quite important to me, and I don't know why really. But that was the first half marathon, and I thought, tick, box ticked. I've done 10Ks, 5K. I've done a half marathon, and then I was asked by, I think, the same guy that I used to work with, who said to me, "Why don't you come along and do Parkrun?" Had said, I've signed up to do the Wilmslow Half Marathon. And this is another trait of mine, I think, is that when someone says, "Do you fancy doing it?" I go, "Yeah, I'll do it." I've done that many times now and thought on the start line, why did I do that?
This is
But
why
yeah,
you
so
usually have a race every weekend of the year. It's
yeah,
because
I know.
running has
Yeah,
become such a big part of your life that all of your friends, most of your friends are runners. It's fair to say that.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
ask you to do these runs and you rarely say no.
No,
So that
I
makes a
rarely
lot of
say no.
sense. So
It's
once
true.
once you'd finish your half marathon, were you then thinking, right, okay, it's time to conquer the big one, or did it feel like another one of those on top of what I've just ran? That doesn't sound
Absolutely.
like fun.
No, no, I had no inclination still, even a couple of half marathons in. I'd still no inclination. I just thought I couldn't possibly run that distance again. It just seems, it just seemed to me to be something that wasn't achievable for me, and I didn't want to do it. And actually, I went from kind of doing those half marathons to running the Thunder Run.
Yeah. So
So,
for anyone that
which
doesn't
was,
know what the Thunder Run is, you
yeah,
just explain because it's pretty.
it is. It's a 24-hour run. I don't think it's going on at the moment. It's lost its sponsorship, which is a real shame. But it was in a place called Burton-on-Trent, and it was a 24-hour run. And you can do it as a solo or a pair, or you can do it as we did it as a team. And I did it with a group of people that I worked with, and we raised money for Macmillan and Macmillan Cancer. And we had the time of our lives. It's one of my favourite. The very first time we did it, so you camp overnight, and it starts at 12 midday and it goes through till 12 midday the following day. And one of your team is on the course at all times. So you run, depending on the size of your team, you run kind of 3, 4, 5 times in 24 hours. So it's trail. It could be muddy. The first year, it was the Thunder Run by name and the Thunder Run by nature. It started, I was the 9:30 at night, and it started thundering and lightning at 9:30, just after I went out. But again, the buzz that I can remember running through these woods where they used to spray all the tree roots so you could see them in the dark, and all you could see, and there was a disco in these woods and you could hear music and these sprayed tree roots. And it was one of those where I felt absolutely alive, running, being soaking wet through, running over luminous tree roots, hearing disco music, and just thinking, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. And
Runner's
that
high is a
sparked,
real thing, isn't it?
oh,
For
without a
anyone who
doubt,
hasn't
without a
experienced it.
doubt. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And, just encouraging other people along on the run, and, just it was just something really special, and it sparked a real love for trail running. I'd never done a trail run, I don't think, before, unless I was a part of Parkrun was trail. I'd never gone out and done a trail run in its entirety, and this was a trail. I don't even think I probably had trail shoes. I bet I did it in road shoes. I bet I didn't even know that was a thing. So, I diversified off into the Thunder Run, and I did the Thunder Run, I think, 4 or 5 times. And since then I've done Endure 24, which is a similar thing, a couple of times as well. The one at Leeds, which for anybody listening who's done that will know what an amazing event that is as well. Very similar to the Thunder Run, but a lot flatter.
Yeah. I would love to do something like that. That kind of brings a team element to running. That's something that I haven't done yet. I
Yeah.
find that I run alone a lot. I'm a
Yeah.
bit of a solo runner. It's kind of my, I don't know. It just if my mental health is not where it needs to be, go for a run. But
Yeah.
I think the team
Absolutely.
aspect of the Thunder Run definitely appeals to me. There's also a competitive nature, isn't there? So is it like
Without a
the
doubt.
the team that
Seems.
racks the most miles up?
Yeah.
So there's kind of a leaderboard
The
as
most
well.
laps.
The
The
most
most
laps.
laps, yeah, yeah. So there is that competitive element,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's such good fun. Last year when I didn't run all of my laps because of a niggly injury, and so but I opted to walk some in the night to give the rest of the team. So I walked 2 laps back to back and walked with people, and it was brilliant. Just hearing people's kind of stories about how they were there, why they were there. It's phenomenal. But I still didn't think, I mean, when I did the Thunder Run for the first time, I wasn't thinking, well, this is a stepping stone to a marathon. And that came many, many years later, really. And I really don't know why, but
So what was your first marathon,
Manchester, yeah,
and how did that
I
go?
hated every minute. Every minute. I hated every minute. And I hated every minute for a few reasons. The first reason is I know every inch of the Manchester Marathon route personally because of us living local. So I know it shouldn't make a difference because 26.2 miles is 26.2 miles. But my goodness, it made a difference to me. So I knew when we set off on the Chester Road and ran into Manchester and then ran back out. And at 10K, we were back where we'd started. And mentally, I'm like, oh, we've not run anywhere. We've literally just run back to where we started. And then thinking about the trek from there up to Altrincham and,
When
back
you
from
can gauge
Altrincham.
how
And
far that really is because you've
yeah,
driven down those roads so many times, I do think there's a mental element to that where being naive to the course can sometimes help because it's fresh and you kind of
yeah,
can't gauge how
no,
far things are. I definitely think
no,
that plays a part. Um, but
massive part.
yeah, so how did that first marathon turn out? Did you hit
Well,
the
I know what you're
wall or?
smiling, you see, because you know exactly how it turned out. Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
I did hit the wall. I mean, I made all the, again, I didn't, I did have a training plan. I didn't really know how to adapt the training plan for when, life got in the way, when you get those inevitable niggly injuries. I had no idea what to do. I fumbled my way through it as best I could, really. Thought I was prepared. I'd ran 20 miles in training. But, I went out too fast, which, these all sound like kind of like, especially going out too fast. It's, everybody says it, but it's so hard not to do that. I've learned not to do that now, but at the time I didn't. So I think it all went really well until the half marathon stage. And then the wheels started to come off a little bit. And you can probably pick up the story at the points at which I phoned you.
Yeah, so I was a spectator that day and at that point had no interest in running whatsoever.
Oh, you did.
I wasn't a runner. I was a footballer, so if I wasn't running with a ball at my feet, I wasn't prepared to do it. But obviously you go along to support your mother. Little did I know how much I would be supporting and be involved in the end as I got a call at maybe you might remember better than me, but maybe mile 18 around that point.
Probably was, yeah, earlier than that, I think. It was after I'd left Altrincham.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
when you look at your phone and the person who's running the marathon is calling you and you're waiting for them to run by you, you know something's not gone to plan. So I pick up the phone and hear you crying and saying, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I can't. And, the coach in me kind of piped up and was telling you can do it and just to focus on the next step. I had no idea what the right advice to give you was, if I'm brutally honest, at that point, other than just to fill your head with positive thoughts and to distract you from whatever was going on in your head and in your body as well. So eventually you rounded the corner. I was still on the phone to you. Me and Jen, my sister, your daughter, for anyone listening. We just assume everybody knows who everyone is. Began to run next to you. And I remember this
yeah,
long straight road going back into
yeah,
Manchester.
Brooklands Road. Yeah,
Yeah, and then you were off, and I'm pretty sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I know you were in a lot of pain, but I'm pretty sure you finished that quite strong.
yeah. I think through, and I know you say you didn't know what advice to give me, but what you actually asked me was, is this a mental thing or is it a physical thing? And I kind of had a word with myself and thought, this is a mental thing. Physically, I'm okay. Mentally, I'm not in a great place. And I think so that gave me something to think about for a few miles. And then obviously, yeah, Jem rang with me down Brooklands Road. And then I turned the corner and then there were a group of friends at around mile 20 at the Little B at Sale. For anybody that knows this course that's listening, these will all resonate. The Little B, there was people outside the pub, shouting, cheering you on.
Now,
There
be
was
honest,
some.
Mum, how does that make you feel?
Well, I have a thing, about sometimes I find it motivating and sometimes I just want to tell people to cheer me on where to get off. It really depends on how I'm feeling. I
Yeah,
know that sounds like a terrible thing when
yeah,
people
I'm
are
not going to
standing
let
out
you
there
come on
and,
this podcast and lie and
oh,
say, the crowd just, every time
no,
you say,
yeah,
the
yeah,
crowd, when they
I
shout,
know,
you're almost there, and you know you're not almost there,
I know.
there's the right thing to,
Only a part run to go. That's when you want to strangle someone.
yeah.
And I've shouted it myself. knowing that, and I know that I've marshaled enough runs now to know that, the encouragement of crowds is generally a good thing for people
I
running, and
love it.
it's generally a good thing for me. It was certainly a good thing kind of at that point. And then, yeah, I think I knew at that point that I was going to finish it. And yes, it wasn't, I think a lot of people had kind of told me what a strong runner I was and how I was capable of a sub 4 and all of that. And I think I almost believed my own press, if you like, and I thought that I could do it. And actually, I didn't. I didn't. Nowhere near a sub 4. I came in at it's on the wall, 4:19:04.
Yeah, for anyone wondering how much my mum loves running, she's just looked at the wall where her
Yeah. Well,
marathon
there's another
time.
there's another story. There's another story. It's on the wall because it's a special memory for both me and your granddad, my dad.
Hmm.
But we'll go into that another time. But yeah, 4:19:04. So I was really disappointed. Really disappointed.
Were you?
Yeah, yeah. I was pleased that I'd managed to have the mental capacity to finish it, but I think I was disappointed that I'd not ran it faster. And the worst thing was that 4 weeks later, I was due to do it all over again. And I can thank COVID for that because I ended up with 2 marathons within 4 weeks of one another because COVID had the marathon cancelled. So 4 weeks later, I find myself in Barcelona doing it all over again. And this is a perfect example of, do you fancy doing Barcelona Marathon? Yeah, I'll do that. And a group of us headed out for one of the best running memories of my life. I mean, I know I'm saying this probably about every run, and there's not many runs apart from Manchester where I don't have really fond memories of running. But yeah, there I was on the start line in Barcelona, and I decided that I was going to use Barcelona as an opportunity to not worry about the time, to just go out in an amazingly beautiful city and just enjoy it and get a little bit of my mojo back for running because it had deserted me a little bit after Manchester.
Yeah. So what was the difference in feeling when you didn't have that pressure of time crossing the finish line compared to the Manchester Marathon where you'd set this goal? Maybe not even. I don't know if you'd have known what indicators you were looking for to tell you can run a sub 4. Maybe it's just that thing that everybody looks for, isn't it? Sub 4. I want to see a
Yeah,
3 at the start.
yeah,
They don't really take into account, okay, so I ran a half marathon in this, and I guess you did run it in just under 2 hours. But then replicating that
yeah,
again is very, very
yeah,
difficult.
yeah, yeah. At
But
Manchester, do you mean?
yeah,
2 hours. Oh
yeah.
yeah, probably quite considerably under because my half marathon time at the time that I did Manchester was around 150.
Hmm.
So, and I probably did run it, in that time, but I wasn't running a half marathon. I was running a marathon, and I shouldn't have been anywhere near that fast,
Hmm.
to run a sub 4. I know that now.
Yeah,
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
it is.
But yeah, Barcelona totally different. I just enjoyed it for what it was, a run round, an opportunity to do a grand sightseeing tour. When I
Hmm.
got back to work on the Monday, somebody said, "Did you manage to get to see much of Barcelona?" I said, "Yeah, I saw 26.2 miles of it."
Yeah, yeah,
And you do, you're taking all of the main sites from starting out running from the Montjuic fountain down past the Barcelona's football ground, the Camp Nou, up to the Sagrada Familia, blah de blah, all of those great kind of big, iconic landmarks of an amazing city. And yeah, I came in with a smile on my face, and when we kind of flew in on the Saturday, did the marathon on the Sunday, and basically headed for a quick beer and then for the bus back to the airport.
yeah. Perfect.
Which, yeah. So yeah, but it kind of restored my mojo for sure, and perhaps made me think. I mean, I was slower, don't get me wrong. I was slower at Barcelona than I was. So I think I probably came in at around another 5 minutes on top of that. So somewhere around kind of 4:24, 4:25 maybe, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
For that one, I didn't care because it wasn't about time. It was just about enjoying it.
There's a difference between kind of running a marathon and racing a marathon, isn't there? You know, like when you have that PB goal in mind, you could have gone to Barcelona with a real competitive mindset of, okay, I didn't get what I wanted in Manchester. I'm going to get it here. And I guarantee you wouldn't have noticed the new camp and all of the other landmarks around Barcelona.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes running just is about taking in the experience.
without a
My
doubt.
first marathon in Loch Ness, I knew I wanted to run it as quick as I could, but I also chose Loch Ness because I wanted it to be special. I wanted it to be an experience, somewhere memorable, somewhere scenic. And that's a first marathon that I'll never forget as a result, as opposed to the York Marathon at the end of last year. And I couldn't tell you a single landmark because it was all about, okay, I'm going to run sub 3 here and I need to be hitting this pace. And you're thinking, you're so fine tuned on pace and where am I in my pacing strategy? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? And it doesn't really allow you to take in the amazing atmosphere or soak it in as much as when you just run for enjoyment. And I do think it's really important for anybody wanting to run marathons of sometimes just allow yourself to go out and just run it. Don't pressure yourself. Don't make it about time, but just go out and soak it in, and you'll find your love for
Yeah.
running in that. So I
I
definitely
think
can relate.
the other thing was as well was that I think I realised after Manchester, one, the amount of the amount of kind of trauma you're putting through your body and running 26.2 miles, it feels so mainstream now to run a marathon because there are so many marathons out there. But actually, 26.2 miles is one hell of a lot of kind of trauma to be putting your
Yeah.
legs and the rest of your
And
body
it's
through. I think,
also down to the ultra marathon space, which we both have experience in and both
yeah,
love, and we'll talk about that in a different episode. But the hardest geezers, the William Googes that are running marathons every single day, have
yeah, yeah,
almost made running a marathon seem like it's just this normal
yeah,
experience. But in actual fact, the first that I can't remember the exact story, I'm going to butcher it, but the person who ran the first 26.2 miles, the old story.
yeah,
He was
marathon,
running,
yeah,
yeah, he
yeah,
dropped dead. So it's not
yeah,
the marathon should never be seen as this, oh, you only ran a marathon, or it's
yeah.
an amazing accomplishment, and
Absolutely. And
regardless
when you're
of
doing
time.
2 in 4 weeks, I was very conscious of that. And I was very conscious of the fact that I realized that the training that I'd done really wasn't, even though I wasn't, because I was running for the Royal Marsden. I ran the Barcelona Marathon for the Royal Marsden Cancer Hospital in London, and I'd raised money. So otherwise, I don't know if I'd have run it. I think that was, I wouldn't let people down,
Mhm.
and that's where my stubbornness kicks in as well. I thought I'm not gonna not do this marathon,
Well, they say
but
you should leave a day per mile to recover. So realistically, you want 26 days, and that's just to
yeah,
be feeling back to normal, not to be
yeah, to go
okay,
out
now run
training.
another marathon. By that
Yeah,
point, you should be building your miles back up slowly, but not jumping straight back into another 26.2 miles. So, especially at that point of your running journey, it's pretty amazing that you physically were capable of doing that. It just
yeah,
shows the different experiences that you can have through running a marathon based on where your focus is. You can make it
yeah,
all about time and I do that, so I'm not saying that that's a wrong or right way to do it. But you can also make it all about the experience and the journey of going from being able to run maybe a 5K to building your endurance up to run 26.2 miles. And the journey of
yeah.
that is amazing. It's not just about the one day, is it? It's the whole experience. But then you
No,
can
it's
make it
not. No.
about fundraising and doing something amazing, which you've done so many times. And that's one of the best things about running, I'd say, is that yes, it improves people's health, it makes people competitive, it pushes people's limits, but it also does so much good for mental health, for charity, that side of things. And maybe that's not spoken about enough, but
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
agree.
then from Barcelona, you ended up running Rome, didn't you?
Did. So at the grand old age of 59, I decided that there was something really nice about running a marathon abroad, combining it with
It
kind of
was the
seeing.
beer and the sounds of eating pasta and pizza.
I won't lie, the pizza was, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to carve up anywhere, Rome's the place to do it. But yeah, it was the same group that did Barcelona. So we were on a bit of a roll and we decided that, we would do the Rome Marathon. And this time it was different. So, this time I actually had a running coach, and this time I trained properly and with a running coach. So I'd run 20 miles in training for Manchester. I only ran 18 miles once in training for Rome, yet ran so much faster. So having for me, had I not had a running coach to help train me for Rome, I wouldn't have been able to navigate my way through some Achilles issues that I had. I wouldn't have been able to navigate my way through illnesses that cropped up, colds and that kind of thing during the training. And it just gave me the confidence to kind of get to the end of the marathon training block. If I'm honest, my coach was adamant that I could run a sub 4 marathon, but I think I'd lost a little bit of my confidence that I could do that. So I decided that I set myself a goal of 4:15, which would have been 4 minutes and 4 seconds. I'm glancing at the wall now to remind myself. 4 minutes and 4 seconds faster than Manchester. And I thought, if I do that, then that's a fair old chunk off my previous marathon time. So, yeah, that was what I set out to do at Rome.
What happened?
I ran 3:59 and 1 second
Exactly.
somehow. Yeah. And, what an experience. Again, another beautiful city to run. And, it's funny because, there's snapshots from various runs through my life that I remember vividly. And the one from Rome is there's a lot of bridges to run over. During the Rome Marathon, there's something like, I think you go backwards and forwards over bridges about 22 times or something like that. But there is one bridge where, as you're coming over, you're coming towards the Vatican and you turn to the left at the end and the Vatican's in front of you. And I can remember I was running with music, and I think I've told you this before, that somehow, I don't know how, because it wasn't on my playlist, but it just popped up on Spotify, but an Elvis Presley number, I Just Can't Help Believing, came on. It kind of came on, and I thought, where's this come from? I think I've knocked a button or something. And it came on, and I can just remember a real kind of, I probably started to run a bit too fast at that point. And as I turned towards the Vatican, it was a real special moment, just I'd never been to Rome before, so I'd never seen the Vatican. We'd only arrived on the Friday, and this was the first time I'd seen the Vatican, and I'm running towards it. And yeah, and that was around the half marathon point. And yeah, just a totally different when I think back to Manchester and the amount of pain, both mentally and physically, and I think to Rome, and I think of all of the things that were going through my head around strategy of running with the pacer, keeping the pacer in my sights, thinking about what my running coach told me, checking in with my body on a regular basis, making sure that my fueling was on point, getting
Yeah.
those gels down, stopping. I walked every water station. I stopped and actually took some time to get some water down me properly. So walked the length of a water station and picked it up at the far end, and all of these things, I'd just come so far. And so, you know, some considerable. Well, so what year did I do Manchester? I did Manchester in, what year is that? 2022? Is it 2022? Oh no, 2021. And then to do Rome, then 2 years later. So it was 57 when I ran Manchester, and then 59 when I ran Rome, and to do it kind of, that much faster than 20 minutes, over 20 minutes faster. And, I knew with 5K to go that, barring falling over on some of the many cobbles in Rome, and there
Which
are
is
a lot of
something that you
cobbles.
would do.
Yeah, I've fallen over on many a run. That's probably the subject of a podcast somewhere,
Do a
falling
full
over on
episode on
runs.
that.
But I thought as long as nothing major happens now, I was pretty confident that I would sub 4. And so I could lean into that, the pain of the last 5K. It's only a park run, even told that to myself.
Yeah.
Nobody shouted it at me.
Yeah.
And that's where I did enjoy the crowd noise coming back round to the Coliseum, and then again seeing the digital display. And I knew that I'd done it, and it's a very special feeling. And I don't know why. I don't know why to run a sub 4 is such a big thing. 'Cause like you said, it is just one of
I
those
think
things.
it's setting a goal and committing to it and dedicating fully. And when you understand all of the effort, all of the runs in the rain and the wind and the cold, all of the runs on tired legs, all of the things that you have to say no to that you want to say yes to, when you compound those things all together, it makes hitting that goal a very emotional experience because you know
Yeah,
what went
very.
into it. You know that
Yeah.
you've just pushed your limits. There's something really special about crossing the finish. There's something special about running in general, and there's something special about running marathons, but crossing that finish line and doing what you said you'd do, it's a high that usually you'd have to call a drug dealer to figure out, and I haven't done that, Mum, don't
Well,
worry.
I've never even smoked, so let alone taken any drugs. But I can imagine that that's absolutely true. That
Yeah,
there is
of course you
no,
haven't.
maybe when your football team scores, when that ball goes in the back of the net, that's a similar feeling.
We don't talk about Stockport County on this podcast, Mother. Let's not make it another
We
Stockport County
should.
podcast. But yeah, I
You're not.
actually told you earlier on, we were talking about running and our experiences through it. And I told you that I would bet money on in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to PB again. And there's something special about the longevity that running can give you, and that it can be a constant, source of like competitive spirit inside you. And I think that's important to have. I think it's something that a lot of people lose, especially as we get older. We kind of stop competing with ourselves, and that's okay. You don't have to do it all the time, but having that in running, which, serves you both now and in the future, is going to add years to your life. It's also going to fuel you in the moment as well. I think it's really special, but I would put a lot of money on UPB again in the next 5 to 10 years. Having said that, I guess that brings us up to the present day of you actually haven't ran in 3 or 4 months,
4 months.
maybe 4 months. So you ruptured your Achilles at boot camp, which I know has been obviously a really hard experience. Seeing you rehab it and how dedicated and consistent you've been, the same dedication and consistency that you put into your running has been really cool to see. A lot of people feel dejected,
Oh, I
maybe,
felt dejected.
yeah, but you
I'm
do
no,
it
I'm no.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but I
that's that
definitely felt
stubbornness.
dejected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we'll do a
yeah,
full episode on being injured and having to take breaks away from running because I think it's a really crucial topic surrounding running. But I
yeah.
think that
I agree.
ties it up nicely. We actually got on this podcast thinking we were going to speak for 15 minutes, and
Well, you should have known I'd speak for longer than that.
I was going to say, once I get you talking about running, it's going to turn into a Joe Rogan episode and we're going to be here for 3 hours. But that just goes to show how much we have to talk about in the future. We can talk about each of those runs, kind of the differences between your first marathon and the one that you recently PB'd, and kind of the process of that. But this podcast is going to be about the highs and the lows of running, the ups and the downs, the inevitable obstacles that arise. It's not going to be super sciencey. We're not going to, be talking about lactate threshold every week, but we are going to talk about our own experiences and talk about maybe a few things that could help you become a bit of a better runner. And hopefully people kind of can relate to both of our stories in the running world. But I think that kind of tops it off nicely. And we're going to be releasing an episode every week. So we've got some cool topics to talk about soon. So I
Yeah,
hope everybody enjoyed the first episode of the Mum and Son Run podcast, which is a mouthful.
It is.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Hope
Thanks,
you've
Mum.
enjoyed it, guys. See you
Yeah.
soon. Thank you, son.